The SPL Transient Designer has been a firm favourite of audio professionals for years, but now Plugin Alliance and SPL have come together to produce the ultimate software version of this awesome processor. The Transient Designer Plus represents a significant upgrade from the original and sports new features like an internal limiter, a parallel mix control, and we've also implemented a flexible sidechain filter that can be triggered by either internal or external sources. I'll be showing you tips and tricks using all of these new features in this video, but if you want to go and grab your own version, you can get it as a fully functional 14-day trial from the Plugin Alliance website. But for now, let's take a look at the excellent Transient Designer Plus in the mix. Here we have an instance of Transient Designer Plus inserted onto a drum loop. First up, let's take a look at one of the more traditional ways we can process our transients. Reducing attack and sustain is really useful for a couple of different reasons. We can reduce the initial harshness of a drum group, or we can remove room sound or sustain between each drum hit. So let's have a look at both of these in action. First, let's reduce the attack. And now the sustain. One thing you'll notice with both of these processes is that our level isn't really affected, so it's not something you really have to worry about. On the other hand, when we start adding attack and sustain, we may get some great energetic sounds, but we do run the risk of getting into some clipping and overloads. And I've added Logic's meter here so you can see that happening while I add attack and sustain. We can see some overs here, and we can see some internal overloads on the plugin. We're going to see even more as we add sustain. Now, the classic way to deal with this would be to reduce the output gain or reduce the output gain on your main channel. But now we have an internal limiter that will ensure that we don't hit anything above 0 dB. It's worth pointing out here that the limiter itself introduces no latency at all into the audio signal, so it's the perfect tool to use when tracking or mixing live. So let's have a listen to the same sound with the limiter engaged. We can now afford to push things right to the max without ever going above 0. Now, the sort of effect we've created here may be a little bit intense for the mix, but we've now got a parallel mix control so that we can mix back in some of the dry signal. You can hear it adds real energy. Another useful new feature in the Transient Designer Plus is the innovative sidechain filter. Now, let's say you want to home in on a specific part of a drum loop, say the kick drum or the upper percussion or a snare drum. You can quite easily do that. So let's go ahead and switch the sidechain filter on and also switch the sidechain solo on. This allows us to hear exactly which frequency is going to trigger our internal processing. We can sweep all the way up, but I'm going to focus in on the kick drum for now. Now the Transient Designer is only being triggered by these low frequencies. Let's try sweeping this parameter up so only the high frequencies trigger the processing. In this situation, we end up with a smoother, more predictable effect because it's being triggered by the high-end percussion as opposed to the kick drum. If your DAW allows it, you can activate the sidechain external button and use anything in your current mix to activate the sidechain circuit. So as you can see, lots of great new features here, and what they all add up to is a really potent upgrade from the original Transient Designer. If you want to try the Transient Designer Plus on your own system, on your own audio, remember you can go over to the Plugin Alliance website and grab it as a fully functional 14-day trial. You can also get loads of other plugins, so if you haven't already, make sure that you join up and get a free account and get involved with the Plugin Alliance.